The cafe smelled faintly of roasted coffee and fresh bread. The kind of warmth that didn't just come from heaters, but from the hum of quiet conversations and the sound of life happening. Outside, the snow was falling harder, coating the city in soft white silence. Inside, Daniel Hayes sat alone at his usual corner table, staring through the window with a blank expression. His soup sat untouched, the steam long faded. He came here every morning before work, not because he loved the place, but because it helped him remember what peace used to feel like. Before everything changed, before his wife's car never made it past that intersection 2 winters ago. Since then, silence had been his closest companion. It was supposed to be just another lonely breakfast. But then a small voice broke through the background. Noise of clinking cups and soft music. Daniel looked up, startled. A woman stood before him, clutching a small boy who couldn't have been more than 3 years old. Her eyes were soft yet heavy with exhaustion, the kind that told stories words couldn't. "Can I sit here?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling slightly. There were other empty tables, but this one was closest to the window, maybe the only spot where sunlight managed to touch. Daniel hesitated, confused by the sudden request, but before he could answer, the little boy shivered and tucked his face into his mother's coat. "If you sit," Daniel finally said, his voice low but gentle, "you have to eat too. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small acts that can change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps us spread more real, heart-touching stories just like this one." Her name was Grace Mitchell. She looked to be around 28, maybe younger, though the sleepless circles under her eyes made her seem older. Her son, Lucas, clung to her tightly as she slid into the chair opposite Daniel. She didn't order anything at first, only asked for a cup of warm water. Daniel noticed her coat beige, but worn thin, its edges frayed from too many winters. Lucas's blue jacket was zipped to his chin, but his mittens didn't match, one gray, one brown. It didn't take much to piece things together. Grace had been walking for hours that morning. She had lost her job 2 weeks ago, a small cleaning position at a local motel that barely paid enough to keep the lights on. Her landlord had given her until the end of the week to pay rent, but there was no money coming. She had tried the shelters, all full. Today, she had come to the cafe to warm Lucas up, nothing more. The waitress had told her she couldn't stay without ordering, so she'd been about to leave when she noticed Daniel sitting alone. Something in his face, quiet, kind, maybe. Broken like her, gave her the courage to ask. Daniel pushed the plate of croissants toward her and motioned to the waitress for another bowl of soup. "You don't have to," Grace whispered, embarrassed. But Daniel shook his head. "No one should be hungry," he said simply. As Lucas ate, Daniel found himself watching them, realizing how long it had been since he'd heard a child's laugh up close. Lucas giggled as crumbs fell onto the table, and Grace smiled faintly, brushing them away. That small smile, tired, grateful, and fragile, stirred something in Daniel's heart he hadn't felt in years. For a fleeting moment, he wasn't the man who had lost everything. He was just someone sharing a meal with strangers who needed warmth more than he did. Grace thanked him again and again, her voice cracking slightly each time. She said she'd pay him back when she could, but Daniel only nodded. He didn't need repayment. What he wanted, though he didn't know it yet, was to feel human again. After they finished, she tried to stand, ready to leave, but Lucas yawned and leaned his head against her shoulder. Daniel noticed how pale she looked, and before she could take another step, he asked softly, "Do you have somewhere to go?" Her silence was answer enough. She didn't want pity, but she was too tired to lie. So she told him a little. Not everything, just enough for him to understand. Her husband had left when Lucas was one, taking every dollar they had. Her parents were gone. She'd been working odd jobs since, trying to build a life that seemed to crumble every few months. "I'll find something," she said finally, forcing a brave smile. "I always do." Daniel nodded slowly. He knew that kind of determination, the quiet, desperate kind that holds a person together when everything else falls apart. He reached into his wallet and placed a few bills on the table, not for pity but for peace. "Please," he said gently, "just get a proper meal tonight." Grace looked at the money, her pride fighting against her need. But when she saw Lucas's sleepy face, she took it with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about them. The way Grace had held her son close. The way she had looked at her food like it was both a blessing and a reminder of what she didn't have. He told himself not to get involved, that people come and go, that he'd done his part. But something inside him whispered that maybe this wasn't a coincidence. The next morning, he returned to the cafe, half hoping, half fearing she might come back. And she did. She looked cleaner today, her hair tied neatly, her scarf wrapped tight. Lucas ran to the window and pressed his small palms against the glass, laughing at the snow. "You came back," Daniel said softly. Grace smiled. "You left your scarf," she lied, placing it on the table. Daniel realized what she'd done, giving herself a reason to return without admitting she wanted to. He smiled back, grateful for the excuse. They shared breakfast again, and this time she told him about her dreams, how she once wanted to study nursing before life had other plans. Daniel listened quietly, offering small encouragements between sips of coffee. Over the next few weeks, the cafe became their unspoken meeting place. Grace found a part-time job at a daycare, and Daniel, who worked as an architect, helped her fill out forms for government assistance. Lucas started calling him Mr. Dan slowly. What began as kindness turned into something deeper, not love at first sight, but love built from trust, from shared silence, from the comfort of knowing someone cared. One snowy morning, Daniel found Grace sitting alone by the window, tears in her eyes. The daycare had closed unexpectedly, and she didn't know how she would pay rent again. Lucas was with a neighbor, unaware that their home might disappear soon. Daniel sat down beside her, watching her try to hold it together. "You helped me enough," she said through tears. "You don't have to fix my life." "I'm not trying to fix it," Daniel replied quietly. "I just don't want you to fight alone." He offered her something she didn't expect. A temporary job as his housekeeper. His home had been empty for too long, and he needed help maintaining it. Grace hesitated, but eventually agreed. What neither of them realized was that this arrangement would change everything. Working in Daniel's house, Grace brought life back into the rooms that had been silent for years. She cooked simple meals, kept things organized, and sometimes sang softly while Lucas played. Daniel, who had shut himself off since losing his wife, found warmth returning. Not the kind that erased pain, but the kind that made it bearable. Evening, while she washed dishes and Lucas built towers with blocks, Daniel stood by the doorway watching them. The golden light of the lamp softened everything. The sound of laughter, the smell of bread, the heartbeat of a home rediscovered. "Grace," he said finally, his voice trembling. "You and Lucas, you've brought something back I thought was gone forever." She turned, her hands still wet, unsure what to say. Tears filled her eyes before words did. For the first time in years, Daniel reached out, not out of charity but out of hope. From that day, their lives intertwined in ways neither had planned. Grace found strength in the stability Daniel offered. Daniel found healing in the warmth Grace carried. Their story wasn't a fairy tale. It was two broken lives mending side by side, slowly, gently. Months passed and winter melted into spring. On a bright morning, Grace sat once again across from Daniel in the same cafe where it had all begun. Lucas sat between them, munching on a croissant. Grace smiled as she looked out the window, her reflection overlapping with his. "Can I sit here?" she whispered playfully. Daniel chuckled softly. "Only if you eat too," he said, just like that first morning. They both laughed, a sound full of gratitude, memory, and quiet joy. What began as a simple act of kindness had turned into a second chance at life. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more stories of kindness, hope, and unexpected love to life. Before you go, tell us in the comments, would you have done what Daniel did? Helped a stranger in need? Or maybe, has someone ever shown you kindness when you least expected it? Because sometimes one small "can I sit here" can change